Good evening, everybody. Today is April 15th, and our topic tonight is balancing blood sugar naturally with Alicia Hogstead. April specials are the Timeless Trio, which features 4 ml bottles of Beautiful, Shine, and Whisper. And then, of course, while supplies last, is the Rose Hydrosol and Moringa Rose Oil. So if you hadn't bought it yet, I would do it now because who knows how much longer it will be in stock for. And then, can you guys believe that doTERRA is all 18 years old? So they are doing a 18 years celebration starting April 18th through the 28th, which 5 oils will be 18% off, and they are Frank, lemon, tea tree, peppermint, and lavender. So I think it's going to be a limit of 4 per account per order. So stock up, and who doesn't love these basic 5? April specials again are 20% off enrollment orders through this month only. And then reactivation fees are waived from this month through the end of June. And then Silver Club, I really don't need to share any of these, but if anybody new signs up, reach out. Upcoming classes, April 22nd will be in person at the Senior Center if you are local. And then that same day, Jody Craning will be speaking on astrology and essential oils made simple. And then April 29th, we have the privilege of hearing from Dr. Goff and Ruth Goff on smart supplementation decoded. So, and then another save the date. So if you are in the Minnesota, Wisconsin area, we have the privilege of having Dr. Riggs here for an unplugged event. It will be in Baldwin at the Phoenix Grill and Event Center. And details are still to come as we're still trying to figure things out. So again, June 17th in Baldwin, Wisconsin. And I really don't need an introduction for Alicia. She's amazing. She's done lots of different topics for us. So Alicia, take it away.
Thank you. Let me see. Hold on. Let me share my screen real quick. Sorry, this always takes a second to get situated. So originally we were supposed to talk about the 90-day reset tonight. And Sandy and I were having a conversation, and she's like, people are really, really interested in learning about blood sugar. Do you know much about blood sugar balancing? And I was like, you know what, Sandy, that's funny that you say that, because I just started taking a course on blood sugar because I found out that I struggled with insulin resistance. So I'm going to get a little bit into that and tell you guys a little bit about my story, because I know most of the time I'm on here teaching about holistic dentistry and telling you guys about my history with having a root canal that made me chronically ill. So this is going to be very different from what we usually talk about. So a little bit about me in case you don't know me. My name is Alicia Hogstead. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. I've been with doTERRA since 2012. I'm a Blue Diamond and a Founder 2.0, but most importantly, I have 3 little kiddos, and I love them dearly. And doTERRA has allowed me to be a work from home mom with them for the last 14 years. So it has incredibly blessed my life. But through that journey of having my 3 kiddos, was was kind of like this roller coaster with my health. I've shared about my root canal issue and how that caused me 20 years of chronic disease. And I've been in this constant state of trying to heal my body. And I felt like every time I was making progress, every time I did a major cleanse, I would get pregnant. And then it would set me back because my hormones would get all messed up. And it's just, having a baby does a lot to your body. And so a lot changed. Um, Hold on. I'm going to see if I can try to put the chat up just so I don't miss. as much. Okay, there we go. So, my journey with having children was incredibly humbling on what it did to my body. And I swear, every single time I would talk to my doctors and be frustrated that I wasn't able to lose weight, or that it was just I was working out. I did a lot of sports. I have been gluten-free and dairy-free, mostly sugar-free, cooking all of my food from scratch for the past 15 plus years. So I was doing a lot of work to try to manage my weight and manage my blood sugars, because I knew that there was a blood sugar problem. Because when I wouldn't eat or have enough animal protein, my sugars would crash and I would get all shaky and I'd have a hard time thinking and functioning. So I knew that there was a problem there. But my doctors kept saying, "Oh no, you're fine. Your A1C is fine. Your A1C is perfectly healthy." Like over and over and over and over, they would tell me that. And until I became a functional practitioner and started running different tests on myself, didn't realize that I really did have a blood sugar issue. It's just that I was insulin resistant. So you can be insulin resistant and not have diabetes and have within normal ranges with your A1C. And so being able to run those tests on myself, I finally figured out what was going on in my body. Now, insulin resistance is the not the core issue. It's a symptom of the core issue. And so that's what we're going to go through today. We're going to focus a lot on insulin resistance, because that is what leads to diabetes. When I say diabetes, I'm talking about type 2 diabetes. Throughout this presentation, type 1 diabetes is something completely different. So just note that I'm going to be talking specifically, when I'm talking about blood sugar control and these kinds of things, it's for those who are pre-diabetic, insulin resistant, or struggling with type 2 diabetes. But everybody, I mean, like, the 9 out of 10 people are metabolically unhealthy in the United States. Like, they actually have studies showing it. There are some studies that say that 94% of adult Americans are metabolically unhealthy. And it's like, ah, like, that's a terrible, terrible statistic. So this information tonight is going to apply to everybody, whether you've been diagnosed with diabetes or not. Now, this next slide is incredibly humbling, but I just shared it for the first time on social media. This is what I looked like 8 months ago, because after multiple times of like losing weight and gaining it back and having my kids, on the left is what I was dealing with and how my body had become so inflamed, so overweight. I was having the hardest time dropping the weight, even though I was eating healthy and doing all of the things. Now, I was running all of these tests on myself, all these functional lab tests, trying to figure out what the core issue was. I did find issues with my gut and my mineral imbalances, and I did parasite cleansing. And I've talked to you guys about that. We have done classes on a lot of those topics. But even though I was doing all the things, I was still struggling with insulin resistance. I was still very depressed, dealing with anxiety, largely because I had HPA axis dysfunction. So I had been in this state of chronic stress for so long that my adrenals were so incredibly taxed that my cortisol had completely tanked, and I hardly had any cortisol to draw from in a stressful state, dealing with brain fog and low hormones. And yes, I am midlife and I'm dealing with perimenopause, but all of those things just were completely out of whack. And I was focusing way too much on cardio because my mindset was, I'm overweight, I need to be doing more cardio. And my mindset completely shifted after I started looking into insulin resistance and looking at everything more from a functional lab perspective, and how to really address what was going on in my body. So as I started to apply those functional medicine principles, improving my insulin resistance, and a huge focus on mitochondria, because mitochondrial function is important, so much more important to address before you even try to think about addressing your blood sugar issues, because the core is your cellular health. So I was addressing my body as a whole and focused a lot more on weight training instead of the cardio, and found that I actually really love weight training. I'm kind of a gym rat now. That's a different story. Okay, so today we're going to talk about balancing blood sugar, but probably not in the way that you've heard it before. I've gathered research from FDN, which is Functional Diagnostic Nutrition. That's the clinical program that I went through. Alex Leaf of the Energy Blueprint podcast, a biochemist that wrote the book Glucose Revolution. I can never say her name, so I'm not going to even try right now. And then also she shares her findings on Instagram on her Glucose Goddess page. Also with the Dr. Tina Moore podcast and some other sources. But this tonight is not going to be about cutting carbs or being perfect. It's about understanding how your body actually works so you can work with it and not against it. So I want to start by shifting how you think about this entirely, or most likely think about it entirely. Who knows? You might be have looking at the same resources as me. Because once you understand this piece, everything gets much easier. It's traditionally thought of as a sugar problem. Like you want to balance your blood sugar, you look at sugars being the problem. But I want to reframe that to phrase it as an energy overload problem. Most people are told that blood sugar issues come from eating too many carbs or too much sugar. But the bigger picture is this: your body is dealing with too much energy overall, not just sugar specifically. So, newer research shows insulin resistance isn't just about glucose. It's actually about your body's ability to store energy safely and what happens when it can't anymore. I learned this from the Alex Leaf on that Energy Blueprint podcast, and I really highly encourage you to listen to it because he shares these thoughts in much more detail, much more eloquently and educated than I can. And obviously, I learned it from him. So it's better to just go straight to that. It's a free resource. You can find it on YouTube or on any podcast app. So, from a functional medicine perspective, insulin resistance isn't something that just suddenly happens, it's a process. What's happening is your cells start becoming less responsive to insulin. So your body compensates by making more of it. At first, this works. Your blood sugar might still look normal, but your insulin is quietly rising behind the scenes. Over time, that compensation starts to break down, and now we see both high insulin and high blood sugar. So instead of thinking of this as a disease that just happens, I want you to think of it as a pattern your body develops over time. This is where functional medicine really shines because we don't just ask, what is it? We ask, why is it even happening in the first place? Yes, food does play a major role, but it's not the whole story. We're looking at how much total energy your body is handling, whether your fat cells can store that energy properly, your stress levels and cortisol, your inflammation, often coming from the gut, and how much muscle you have, which affects how well you use glucose. We don't talk about muscles enough and how important toned muscles are for regulating your blood sugar. Like that is one of the major keys. So please take note of that. All of these systems feed into the same outcome, which would be insulin resistance. So instead of chasing one thing like carbs and thinking that that's the whole problem, we're looking at the entire environment your metabolism is operating in. Because if you are metabolically healthy, you should be able to handle intaking carbs and it not causing major spikes like what a lot of people experience. Even if you look at like ancient diets and things, there's ancient diets and ancient cultures that had a lot of carbs. It's not necessarily the carbs in themselves, unless we're talking about processed carbs, because those are very problematic. But if you are metabolically healthy, your body should be able to handle carbs and handle them well without having those big increases in your blood sugar and steep declines. So this is really important because a lot of people are told that they're fine based on blood sugar alone or their A1C alone. When your doctor just says everything looks fine, you're like, well, I'm not fine. I don't feel fine. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't think you're right. But insulin resistance often starts years earlier when insulin is high, but glucose hasn't risen yet. So by the time blood sugar is elevated, this has usually been developing for a really long time. Your body isn't bad at handling the sugar. It's overwhelmed with energy. Once your fat storage system is maxed out, your body starts rejecting more incoming energy. That is insulin resistance. Insulin resistance is the consequence of a system trying to protect you from storing more. So our doctors and just our society has made us think that insulin resistance is this really bad thing, this bad diagnosis, this awful thing that we have to try to fix. And usually when they try to fix it, they're fixing it with drugs. But I'm trying to reframe your thinking that when insulin resistance happens in your body, it is your body trying to protect you, trying to protect your cells, protect the integrity of your cells. And so it's not that we have to attack the insulin resistance, it's we have to attack what's happening. Why is the body responding in that way? Hopefully that makes sense. So your fat cells are actually supposed to protect you, but they can only hold so much. Once they reach their limit, what is called your personal fat threshold, things start to break down metabolically. I know it's been a while, but when we were taught, when the Meta Power was released, we talked a lot about fat cells and adipose tissue and how um, pretty much everybody has around the same amount of fat cells. It's just like some people have skinny fat cells and some have bigger fat cells. Not everybody. Some people do have significantly more fat cells than others, and sometimes their ability to handle things is much much better just because they have more to deal with. But when we were talking about it, do you guys remember that analogy where it's like a balloon where your fat cells just are either like blown up or shrunk down? So when we don't want our adipose tissue to get blown up because it's got so much stuff in it, so many toxins and different things that are making it to be much larger, and is initially like or eventually becoming causing us to be overweight, right? And so hopefully you remember when we were talking about the essential oils and how the essential oils can actually penetrate those adipose tissues and help to break down what's inside them and help toxins to come out of those fat tissues, which is amazing. So we're going to talk about how our essential oils can help with that piece as well. When your fat cells are full, your body has to put that extra energy somewhere. So like when they're all blown up and they just can't expand anymore, that they can't fit anymore. So it starts storing fat in places it shouldn't, like your liver, muscles, and even your pancreas. That's when insulin resistance begins. So you can see in this graphic where we've got our subcutaneous fat on the outside, on the outer edge, that's right underneath your skin. When you have too much fat, it starts to accumulate all around your organs, and that's incredibly dangerous. Incredibly dangerous. That's your visceral fat. And so that's what we're talking about, where your fat is going to start depositing in places that it should not be and putting major stress on all of your organs. So insulin resistance is protective. Your cells will resist glucose when they're overloaded. This part is really important. Your body isn't broken. It's actually trying to protect you. Your cells are basically saying, we already have enough fuel. We don't want any more. Please don't give us any more. We can't handle any more. So when your body runs out of safe storage, it creates disease as a protective mechanism. Insulin resistance is not the problem. It is the result of the problem. My mentor, Reed Davis, likes to say that all disease leads back to metabolic chaos. Like this, we talked about it in one of my previous classes where just all of your body systems are going crazy and all out of whack. And that's what he calls metabolic chaos. That all of these diagnosable diseases that we get from our doctors are them just trying to explain what the result of that metabolic chaos is. That we have to look upstream at what's going on in the body, upstream, and then downstream is where we've got that diagnosis. So that hopefully helps to give a little background on where I am coming from. So now that you understand what's happening, let's talk about what you can actually do about it in real life. Because when your blood sugar spikes really high, it also crashes. And that's what leads to your cravings, fatigue, mood swings. What we want is it to be stable and steady. So you can see on this graph, like the red is where you've got that steep incline, and then it crashes down below. The normal range is that like purple strip. We want our blood sugars to fluctuate, but not in extreme highs and lows, right? Because that's where energy, focus, and fat loss happens, is when you have a stable curve. So this is one of the easiest things you can do by starting immediately. This is where I'd like to integrate the Glucose Revolution book's main concepts. Her name is Jessie Chopé. Probably didn't pronounce that right, but she wrote the book Glucose Revolution. She's a biochemist, and she also shares a lot of really fun information on her Glucose Goddess Instagram page. I believe she's probably also on Facebook. But her main method is putting eating your meals in order, where you always eat your fiber first, or your vegetables first, then have your protein and fat second, and then your carbohydrates last. And she shows these really interesting graphs on her Instagram where she has a glucose monitor. And so she monitors what happens when you eat just a type of food and what happens on that curve with the glucose monitor. Then when you eat your food in order, what happens with that same type of food, but just putting them in a different order or whatever. So she's got all kinds of different combinations. And some of it is incredibly eye-opening because some of the foods you would think, oh, I thought that'd be healthy. I didn't think that that would cause a spike. And I mean, to be fair, not everybody's going to have the same reaction to the same foods. So what spikes you might not spike me. You know, it can be different for everybody, but it's very eye-opening. And I have found that when I eat my foods in a certain order, that I notice less of the effects of those highs and lows. Because for quite a while, I was monitoring my own blood sugars with a glucose monitor. I've gotten to the point now I don't feel like I have to because everything is so stable. But it's an incredibly helpful tool. Another of her methods is having a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar before each meal. So not just straight, you want to put it in like a 16-ounce glass of water and you drink that glass of water with the ACV in it. And it can help to improve your insulin sensitivity and reduces those post-meal spikes. So here in this graph, she shows what her graph looked like by just eating steel cut oats, and then later what happened with doing apple cider vinegar plus 2 eggs, so having a protein before having the carb, and how that lessened and kept her glucose spike within a normal range. So it's a pretty cool tool. So definitely follow her. Maybe listen to her or read the Glucose Revolution book as well. But those are the main methods that she talks about in those books and that book, and it can have a very noticeable difference over time. One more thing in her method is having a post-meal movement. She suggests a 10-minute walk after each meal. Which definitely helps to improve your glucose uptake and bypasses insulin resistance. You don't need to have an intense workout. During the winter, I have a vibration plate right next to my desk. And so when I'm not able to get out and walk, say like my kids are inside and they don't want to go outside with me or whatever the reason is, I would do 10 minutes on my vibration plate. And it was really interesting to literally watch my glucose spikes drop like immediately after starting it because I was wearing my glucose monitor. So I found that incredibly interesting. The brand of my vibration plate, Life Pro. I got the Life Pro one. I think I got it off Amazon or maybe on Marketplace. I'm not sure. I love it. I think it's absolutely amazing. When I first noticed, when I first got on it, the amazing way it helped with lymphatic movement. Like I was itching all over the place. I'm like, wow, I guess my lymphatic system was really blocked up because that vibration plate was just making me itch. So I could tell everything was moving, and I absolutely love it. Okay. So this is why strength training is so important, because your muscles are like your metabolic powerhouse. They act like a storage tank for glucose. The more you move, the better your body handles blood sugar. So yes, a 10-minute walk is very helpful for after your meals, but if you can do weight training, if you can do push-ups, if you can do anything to activate your muscles, move your body, it's going to be incredibly powerful for helping to manage your blood sugar levels and everything else, your hormones, everything, your whole body. So let's zoom out, because blood sugar is never just about food, right? Like that, those are practical things you can do right now to help with your food, but it's so much more than that. Because there's a major hormone connection in here, because cortisol can raise your blood sugar, insulin stores your energy, and then leptin regulates your hunger. Stress plays a huge role in managing your blood sugars. When your cortisol is high, your body raises blood sugar even if you haven't eaten. So if you're constantly stressed, your body's constantly in a higher blood sugar state. So being able to regulate your cortisol, support your adrenals, is going to be incredibly important for this. And this is completely outside of your food, right? And so a lot of people don't think about how this can factor into it. Show the previous slide. Yes, I can. Okay, I'm gonna move on. Now, there's also a major gut connection. So a lot of naturopaths or functional doctors focus primarily on the gut connection and how digestion is the number one thing that you should be addressing before you try to address your blood sugars. But I would argue with that. that mitochondrial support is more important than your digestion. But I mean, digestion's a real close second because it's very, very important because your gut bacteria actually influence how you process carbs, your inflammation levels, even your cravings. So if your gut is off, your blood sugar will be harder to regulate. When I started doing stool testing, I found when I ran the GI map, which there is an old recording of me teaching that, that it tests for your akkermansia levels. And I had never heard of akkermansia until I ran that test on myself and found that mine was below detectable levels. So there was like nothing there because antibiotics wiped it out. And it's not a bacterial strain that's really easy to just add back to your gut because until recently they didn't even have an akkermansia probiotic. And they do now, but it's crazy expensive. Akkermansia plays a major role in metabolic function and balancing out your metabolism. And so for people that don't have any akkermansia, it makes it very difficult for them to be able to regulate and balance out their metabolism and lose weight when that is not present. And akkermansia is not the only one. It's just one example that I put in there, that having adequate bacterial levels, both like when you think about it, good and bad bacteria, you want to have a balance. Everything needs to be in balance in your whole body. All of the homeostasis is important for everything to be in balance, to be working the way that it should. And so these are just all of these little things add up to the big picture of helping your body to heal. So this is where we look at the whole picture. Like I said, everything is connected. Mitochondrial function should be addressed first. And if Sandy wants to, we can have another class on mitochondrial function at a later date because I do think that that's incredibly important. Stress, gut health, hormones, inflammation, because fixing the root cause makes everything else easier. So going back to the core, going to your foundational things, looking at your body as a whole is going to be powerful. And it's not just one thing. But the nice thing is, like, if it's overwhelming, just pick one thing that you feel like you can handle right now. And then maybe in a month, add another thing. But I have a feeling that most of you on this call are doing a lot of the things. There just might be like one or two pieces of the puzzle that you're missing. So let's go over some support and tools because they can help support the process. But they're not the foundation. They are just tools and a part of the puzzle as a whole. Okay? So these are products you're probably familiar with. The doTERRA MetaPower system was created for metabolic support, right? We've got berberine is really helpful for metabolic support. They call it nature's metformin. And that's what we've got in the MetaPower Assist. This is not the Assist. This is the Assist. No, that's the Mito2 Max. I guess I don't have it. Berberine is, but it's very small amounts. So I have found that some people that really struggle with their blood sugars, that sometimes they have to add additional berberine. I was doing that for a while. I was doing up to 500 milligrams per meal. So I think I want to say there's 25 milligrams in the assist. So sometimes people will take multiple assist with each meal. However, some people were having digestive discomfort from the mulberry because berberine and mulberry can be very powerful for killing off parasites. So sometimes when they were taking too much assist, they didn't realize they might have had a parasite overload and it was causing a little bit of detox. So if you find that you get uncomfortable with taking the assist, I would suggest doing the 90-day reset because that mean you need to do like a full, real good cleanse. And I did teach a class on using doTERRA products for the parasite cleanse. And I don't know if that's in the library, but I know that Sandy has the recording. So if that is an issue, and I can come back and teach it again another time. Cinnamon is also really good for glucose control. So some people like that really struggle with sweets. I find that using the cinnamon oil, like my favorite way to use it was dipping a toothpick in the cinnamon and sucking on it if I had sugar cravings, because it kind of satisfied that sugar craving. But using cinnamon regularly can be helpful for regulating your blood sugars just because it's a really hot oil. Be very selective in the way that you use it on the bottoms of your feet. Make sure you dilute it because it is hot and can cause sensitivity issues. Making sure that you're getting adequate levels of magnesium can also be very helpful, and your omegas. So the E omega, this one, I mean, it tastes awesome. Have you guys ever just popped the capsules in your mouth? I don't even swallow the capsules. I just pop them all in my mouth. My kids call them pop pops. They love them. So making sure that you are getting enough of your omegas for inflammation can be very helpful as well. Then for supporting metabolism and cravings, the whole MetaPower line. But the MetaPower blend is very powerful. It's got cinnamon and grapefruit in it, among other oils. But remember how I was talking about your adipose tissue and how it can store a lot of toxins. The citrus oils can help to break down those toxins and help them to come out of your body. But grapefruit itself has very high D-limonene levels that can help with the natural glutathione production in your body. And it is, I would say, even more so. Like if your goal is fat loss, grapefruit is probably going to be grapefruit, maybe tangerine, are going to be the most effective citrus oils for you to use for that purpose. When I was really focusing on, before they called it Metapower, the Slim and Sassy Challenge, I was using up to 18 drops of grapefruit a day, not at one time, throughout the day. And I noticed some incredible benefits. That at one point when I was doing that along with some other things, if you guys remember the skinny jeans protocol that came from me, because I lost 30 pounds by using that doTERRA protocol. So incorporating your oils into your routine specifically for balancing blood sugar or fat loss can be incredibly helpful. You just have to be consistent with them. They found that using the Metapower soft gels, which there's 3 to 5 drops in each capsule, I believe, using these 5 times a day. So if you don't want to be taking, like I was just putting the grapefruit underneath my tongue, but using these 5 times a day is going to help your body to be more effective at transferring out those toxins and helping with your adipose tissue. Because the more often you use it, the better results that you're going to have. But I cannot talk about this topic without talking about the 90-day reset because this is crucial. This addresses every body system function. And like I said, digestion is incredibly important. And getting the toxins out of your body is crucial for helping your body to heal overall from a functional level, but especially on this topic. And so committing to doing the 90-day reset is going to be one of the best tools that you can do to support your body. So that is definitely not something that I would skip. And yes, sometimes it is hard to get all of the products in there. Getting the entire thing as a whole sometimes is challenging, but you can still get individual pieces of it and use what you can. The only thing that I would add into the 90-day reset, which I've mentioned before, is a binder. Like you want to make sure you're using a good quality binder, and I can recommend one to you if you need one. Now let's talk about some advanced tools real quick. Some of these are a little controversial, but I talked it over with Sandy and we thought it was important to talk to you guys about it tonight. One is the continuous glucose monitors that I mentioned. And yes, you can get those a lot easier now than you could before. Then functional lab testing, because knowing exactly what you're dealing with can be much more effective in making your approach with things, like knowing exactly what bacterial imbalances you're dealing with, or if you have a toxin overload, or whatever that might be. So being able to know what is causing your core issues so you can address them more effectively is going to be very powerful. If you need help with functional lab testing, I am a functional practitioner, and if you don't have a provider, feel free to reach out to me. That's something I can help you with. Body composition tracking can also be helpful, and GLP-1 integration. Now this I know is a very controversial topic, but the reason that I wanted to talk to you about it was because I was very anti-GLP-1. Like, I was like, absolutely not. Like, that's causing problems. People are having awful side effects. It's putting people in the hospital. It's not safe. And I was humbled by one of my mentors who I was talking to about it. And she's like, Alicia, I know that you like to do everything naturally. I know that you always like, I'm not anti-medication, but my children have never had any kind of synthetic medication in their bodies ever in their entire lives. And so I'll talk more about it, Terry. She said, I want you to consider the benefits of microdosing compounded tirzepatide. And I was like, nope, I'm not into it. And she says, I really think that you should listen to the Dr. Tina Moore podcast and look at the research, because there is over 20 years of documented research in microdosing to support people. And with this topic of blood sugar regulation, this is not something that I wanted to avoid talking about because everybody's talking about it. Okay. So I want to talk to you about it from a functional perspective real quick. So GLP-1 integration, like you be familiar with Ozempic, Wegovy, Zepbound, those are the prescription drugs for it. I'm not talking about the prescription drugs. I am talking about microdosing, compounded GLP-1s. They're backed by over 20 years of clinical research. They mimic your natural gut hormones involved in appetite and blood sugar regulation. They support satiety, so helping you feel satisfied, and your portion control. Helps improve insulin sensitivity and blood sugar stability, can significantly reduce systemic inflammation, supports cardiometabolic health, can help reset metabolic signaling patterns, and can be a helpful tool when paired with foundational lifestyle habits. And the reason, like I said, that I wanted to speak out about it and mention it tonight is because I'm telling you that too much fat in your body and not enough muscle mass is causing major problems with your blood sugar. So then you're probably thinking, well, like, how do I get rid of some of the fat? And a lot of people, their first thing is, I'll just do a GLP-1. I'll get my doctor to prescribe it. But the problem is the doctors are making people very sick with the way that they are prescribing these medications. It is causing major, major, major issues. And so that's why I wanted to come at it from a functional perspective, because it's not a good fit for everybody. Medical screening is really important, and quality matters because people are just getting them willy-nilly off the internet from gray markets that are not like FDA approved. There's some really shady stuff going on out there. So it's important to get it from licensed providers, a reputable source where it's from a regulated pharmacy and you know that it's safe. Individualized dosing should be based on your response and tolerance. It often works best with a low and slow approach to minimize the side effects. Rapid weight loss is not the goal. That's not what we want because it can cause a lot of stress on the body. So you may be seeing your friends online showing their pictures of them losing like 100 pounds in less than a year. That's not safe and sustainable weight loss. We want to make sure you're prioritizing nutrient-dense, protein-focused meals. Resistance or weight training is essential to help preserve lean muscle mass. Making sure you're staying hydrated, your digestion as well, your bowels are moving regularly. And all of these things are stuff that doTERRA can help you with. Like using your DigestZen to make sure that your bowels are moving regularly and your digestion's healthy, or the doTERRA fiber to make sure you're getting enough fiber. Taking the VMG so you're getting really good nutritional intake. And optimizing those foundational habits before you ever decide to try something like this. Your best outcomes are going to come when this kind of thing is used as a tool. So if you would like to talk more about this specific topic and how to do it correctly, like let's say that your doctor already put you on a GLP-1 because you have insulin resistance and they're like, oh, this is something that you can do. A lot of type 2 people are diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. It's approved for them. But using it responsibly is something that I have become very passionate about, especially with my clients, because, well, for example, there's 3 different types of GLP-1s that are out there that are popular. And the one in the middle here on this slide, tirzepatide, for example, the starting dose that doctors will put you on is 2.5 milligrams. But my clients never start above 0.5 milligrams. And a lot of times they could stay on it for 8-9 months without ever even getting to the standard starting dose. And so I really do strongly believe that with all of the harmful side effects that you are hearing with that kind of thing happening out there, a lot of it is happening because of the doctors prescribing extremely high doses. So if you can integrate all of the things that I talked about tonight into a routine and address things on a foundational level, and you still feel like there's still something missing, like there's still one piece of the puzzle where I'm not getting the results that I need, this might be something to look into for you. Maybe. If you've already done all the things and it's not working for you, because you might be able to take 500 milligrams of berberine with every meal and have the same results that somebody does with this kind of medication. So if you would like to learn more about this, I have asked a colleague to teach a class for me that is very like-minded with me so that we can integrate doTERRA products and foundational products in with these the concept and talking about safe usage of GLP-1s, that is something I'm going to be putting on in the future. You're welcome to reach out to me if you'd like more information. So with all of that, let's bring all of it together into something that's very simple. Um, Most diets fail because they focus on restriction, but ignore what's actually happening with your metabolism. So, like I said earlier, food is not the problem. It is it's a core issue with your metabolic function. And so trying to just put yourself on a diet is might temporarily help you with an issue, especially with helping to reduce your overall the fat content in your body, but it's not sustainable. And it's not going to address that underlying metabolic dysfunction and is not going to restore your flexibility. So a lot of times that's why diets fail. What we should be doing is reducing your energy overload, improving flexibility, and supporting your cells, because healthy cells is so incredibly important. So let's make up an action plan. If you only take a few things from today, focus on this: eating your foods in order, fiber first or vegetables first, proteins and fats second, and then your carbs and sugars. So if you really, 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 really want to have brownies with ice cream, make sure that you're eating vegetables and protein before you have your brownie with your ice cream. Walking after your meals, or moving your body and engaging your muscles, using a vibration plate if you can't walk, just trying as hard as you can to make sure you're moving your body. But strength training is your secret weapon. Lifting to build and tone your muscles. Like, absolutely, especially women, perimenopausal women, if you want to have like an easier time of perimenopause and into menopause, you need to be strength training. Lifting weights is so much more important than the cardio. Stop running yourself ragged and lift something. Even if it's just lifting your body, doing Pilates, whatever you like to do, engaging your muscles and building up your muscle tone is incredibly important for every regulation of your body. No matter what age you are, that is the most important piece when you're talking about exercise, is building up the muscles. Not to get bulky, but to have good muscle tone. Support your gut and hormones, and use your citrus and MetaPower oils. Make sure you're using them throughout your day. If you want to drink them in your water, if you want to use the soft gels, if you don't like the taste. I like to use, there's a Slim and Sassy wrap recipe. You can find it on the internet anywhere. I love to use that as my lotion just on my belly as I'm trying to break down visceral fat, and just my belly fat in general. It's a work in progress. So I'm using my MetaPower oil with castor oil and that Slim and Sassy wrap recipe. You might be able to find it as the MetaPower wrap recipe, but anyway, I use it as lotion. You don't actually have to use the wrap. I want you to remember this, that your body is not broken. It's been trying to protect you this whole time. So if you're insulin resistant, thank your body for protecting you, and don't curse it because that's not the problem. It's not at the core. So once you understand that, you can finally start working with it instead of fighting it. Balance isn't about doing everything perfectly. It's about doing the right things consistently. So here's some suggested resources. I know somebody was asking in the chat about the podcasts. So the Alex Leaf Energy Blueprint podcast, that's where he rephrased the paradigm and is focusing more on fat and it being an energy problem, not blood sugar being an actual sugar and food problem. Then there's the Glucose Revolution book that's pictured here, or Glucose Goddess on Instagram. And then the Dr. Tina Moore podcast, she talks a lot about peptides. She is the one who completely changed my mindset on GLP-1s. And she uses them, she microdoses them for herself for her rheumatoid arthritis with amazing results. And she's not overweight. She's very fit. She's a bodybuilder. And so she's a chiropractor and a naturopathic doctor, and just everything that she talks about. I love listening to her podcast. So those are some good resources for you. And then if you need to reach out to me for any information, if you would like to know about upcoming class announcements, I suggest following me on Facebook on my public page, Alicia Haugstead Functional Health. That's where I usually post a story with upcoming classes and stuff. But feel free to go to my website or to email me. there's lots of ways you can find me for questions. Okay, I'm going to turn it back to Kayla, and then we are going to have a question and answer at the end.
Thank you so much. While I am wrapping up, you can look through the chat. It's for any questions. I am going to share my screen. And then don't forget to join the Discovery Essentials Facebook group. That's where all the reminders will be, anything going on with doTERRA, and just it's a great group to be a part of in general. And then the email list. I like getting reminders on Monday and Wednesday saying, hey, the continuing education classes this week, the time, the topic, and the speaker. So they are case sensitive. And then don't forget to, after tonight's class, to fill out the continuing ed form. And then I think some of us have graduated and some of us are almost there. So check the grad progress via the QR code or the bit.ly link, and they are case sensitive as well. And then the permanent library is full of great recordings. So again, case sensitive. And then if you, after you graduated, you can pick 2 emotional aromatherapy oils, or you can select a teachable course. And then 3 types of people. I really don't need to go over this, but live, share, and build. Same with 3 ways to purchase: retail, wholesale, and below wholesale. And then enrollment kits. And if when you do enroll, you get your chance to pick from one of these 3. I personally would recommend the diffuser because who doesn't love that itty bitty pebble diffuser? It's perfect for traveling, can fit in your suitcase. And it's just perfect size. And then I don't really know. I don't know how far out she's planning, but she is working on that. And then I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to stop the recording.